really excited for 3 years to talk about this song. Because what I'm about to say here is something that I have not talked about at all publicly at all. Which is unlike me if for some of you who know me. I have not talked about this publicly whatsoever. What this song is really about, why I wrote this song, why I was so angry, is because I got to see two really close friends of mine, their marriage completely fall apart because one of them was unfaithful to the other. And that's what this fucking song's about. Saying that, it's kind of a load off the chest. Something freeing actually saying that. Because it's something that I've held inside me for 3 years, really. So here's the context. There's a lot of details that I know that I'm not going to say. Because it's not my place to say it. Even though I don't really give a shit what anybody thinks at this point. I don't. There's two people that I care about in this situation. One being my friend Bubbles, sup dog, who I know is probably going to watch this, which he's in the same position as me, so I already know, talking to him like in the past about these things, that none of this really affects him directly per se. So like he and I are good. He did nothing wrong, obviously. And the other one being, I'm not going to name names here. I've purposefully chosen to use fictitious names based on basically a novel that I wrote 3 years ago. The other person is who I will call Oscar, he's a victim in this situation. He's the only other person that I actually care, what he thinks when it comes to me talking about this situation. Anybody else who could potentially get pissed off by anything that I'm about to say, I don't care. Like, look me in the eye, like, for real. I don't care. If you want to unfriend me, go for it. If you just want to sit there and secretly judge and not say anything about it, go right ahead. I don't care. Got that out of the way. The story behind this song is I had a group of friends. At a certain point, this Oscar character that I knew befriended a couple. It's through work or something like that. They started hanging around our group. And in this couple was this guy named, we'll call him Doyle. When I first met Doyle, I didn't like the guy at all. I couldn't really tell you why at first. I guess it came down to I thought the dude was just maybe an alcoholic or something that was just kind of an idiot. He kind of seemed like an alcoholic idiot. And I'm not even putting down alcoholism. I'm putting down like idiocy here. But he was pretty much BFFs with my friend Oscar. And so it was kind of like, oh, I guess I have to put up with them. But point being, over the course of, I don't know, 6 months or so, I actually started liking this Doyle dude. I was like, this sumbitch over here is actually a cool fucker. Guess I might as well put out there that I'm just sort of gonna let this fly, like kind of talk normally here. You know, it's not a podcast or whatever for kids, I guess. I started to like Doyle a lot. He seemed like a really cool cat. Was super chill, laid back. Usually, like when he was hanging out with us, maybe it was just, oh, he's not at work. He's just chilling, crack open a beer sort of thing. Um, so yeah, we started becoming friends. We'd like do game nights or whatever, go out on like, I mean, I remember we went out like basically hunting for this like really rare, like gets produced once a year, limited uh, allotment style of beer that like all three of us like really liked, and we found it and like hung out there and just drank this like really amazing like really hearty, just put hair on your chest kind of beer, and like had a great time just hanging out. Making jokes and just having beers and just being dudes, just good times. Then it was around Halloween of 2019. Friend Oscar invited everybody over. We had this like Halloween party thing. I remember Doyle and his wife being over there, and Doyle got shit-faced drunk. I mean, shit-faced drunk to the point of it was kind of like drizzling outside, and he literally passed out in the backyard. And it was like a backyard with like a 50-degree like slant to it sort of thing. Like the house was built into the hill, and he's just like passed out on the ground with it lightly raining outside. And like me and another friend went to get him and try to get him inside, because it was actually pretty early on in the night. Nobody, like he was like literally, I think, the only person who was drunk at all at the party. And like me and another friend had to literally carry his ass from the backyard into the house to like put him on the couch to like sleep the rest of the night sort of thing. And we just sort of laughed about it afterwards. And looking back now, there were like certain strange kind of ominous moments in that party that were easy to kind of overlook at the moment, and probably even now would be overlooked, but just seems sort of strange to me. Whatever. But point being, a week and a half or so later, Oscar's wife, who I will call Amy, texted me one morning. I got the text literally as I was walking out of the gym from a workout, and her text was saying that she had decided, and after a lot of consideration, that she was going to be leaving and getting a divorce from Oscar. And I corresponded with her immediately, just sitting in my car, just back and forth. I was cussing like a sailor. Like, fuck. Like, this is bad. Like, I was in their wedding, okay? These were two very, very close inner circle friends of mine. And I fucking hate divorce. I hate the idea of it. I know it's necessary in a lot of cases, but in most cases, it isn't. And I was just texting her back, fuck you fucking gotta fucking just fuck. Like, me just trying to reason with her, like, don't give up on this. Like, we've all seen this before. Just don't fucking give up. And she said that she had already made up her mind. I got off the phone, basically texting her, and drove literally a quarter mile up the street to where one of her buddies, one of my best friends, worked at the time, and it was like right at like opening time for the business he was working for. And I walked in there. He was behind the counter and just looked over and he's like, "What the hell are you doing here?" And I just looked at him and just started bawling. And we walked to each other, fucking just grabbed each other, bear hug. And he was like, "Fuck, I guess you just heard the news, right?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "Yeah, we got the news last night and we were dealing with it and yada, yada, yada." And being an optimist, he was like, this is just kind of a separation sort of thing. It isn't final. Maybe, distance will make the heart grow fonder kind of thing. And I was like, I hope you're right. One could hope. Within a couple of weeks of that moment, we discovered discovered that just talking to other mutual friends or whatever, that Amy had an affair. And we initially didn't know who it was. I think one of my friends was thinking that it was somebody from high school that Amy had gone out with back in the day or something. And it was just an affair from some ex whatever boyfriend, or not even necessarily an ex-boyfriend, but just an ex-crush or something like that. But it eventually came out that Amy was having an affair with this Doyle guy who was also married and basically best friends with Amy's husband, Oscar. Usually in these situations, I'm like the last one to know anything, but I think I actually knew things about it before some of the people in our group even knew anything. People who I thought would know things like from day one, sort of thing. So that was kind of a weird thing for me. Now, let me build something up here. Amy and I were close too. A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, Amy wrote me a letter after I'd spout off a bunch of, kind of sexist bullshit. How pretty much all women were the same, and just me going into like full He-Man woman hate mode of I'm gonna die alone and women suck and just insert the blanks. And Amy felt inclined that she needed to write a letter telling me her story. Her growing up, seeing like her parents divorced and infidelity, I guess, on one side of one of her parents, and I wouldn't say she had like the worst past or upbringing, but she certainly didn't have the best either. And she pointed all that stuff out in her like testimony, if you will, in this letter. And building up that she had found grace, that she had found Oscar, and that things were better in her life. And she was wanting to tell me not to give up hope, to give up faith in women, that not, like she literally said, look, Ben, not all women are bitches. Not all women are these harpies that are gonna fucking chop your dick off kind of thing. And that's what she did, ultimately, years later, but that's what she tried to do to my boy Oscar. Sorry if that offends you, but that's fucking what happened. I don't know how you can't be angry about that, honestly. Six, 7 months before she decided to leave, and before she had this affair, when it initially started, she and I sat alone in my buddy Bubbles' driveway while Oscar and he and some others were inside the house just playing board games or something. She and I literally sat there on the fucking asphalt for an hour and a half talking about the woman I wanted to marry and all the fucked up things of that situation. And we talked about her marriage and all. And I remember her specifically looking me dead in the eye and saying, you know, it's been, I don't know, 5 years since we got married, and it's been rough. It's been a lot of times that I wanted to give up and just call it quits, but things are really good now. I think I finally understand my husband in a way that I never did before. I think I'm okay with that. No, I am okay with that. I understand him. I know how he ticks. I know what he needs. And knowing that now makes everything make more sense. And so we're in a good place now. I'm happy. 6 months later, she's fucking this other guy. There's no easy way of saying that. She's straight up fucking the dude. We had this party for another friend of ours. And I remember Amy saying in front of all our like tribe of friends, she looked at everybody and then looked at me and said, out of all of us, the one person who's grown more spiritually, whatever you want to call it, he's grown more than anybody else here has been. I'm saying all this stuff because her having this affair is an eclipse on all that goodness. All those good things that she had said when it came to relationships and came to growth and development and everything. It's a shadow. And it cheapens everything that was said. I remember sitting at a birthday party a few weeks after she had left him or whatever. My buddy Oscar showed up. We were hanging out like on the porch or something. I was like smoking a cigarette, beer in hand sort of thing. And I looked at Oscar and he didn't say anything. He just had this glossy look in his eyes and he was just smiling at me. And it was like this look that said, I'm glad you're here. I know you're my friend. And my fucking life is falling apart, but I'm glad you're here. And I didn't know what to say. I just accept the look and you just sort of like stand there with your buddy and you just be, you know? But at the same time, I thought, he's got to be drunk off his fucking ass right now. Did not see like hardly any beer or anything in his hand, like I think the entire time that we were at this party. But I was just convinced that like he's got to be drunk right now, and who could blame him? Like his life's literally fucking falling apart. And I know like after a few hours at this party, we're like sitting in the living room or something. People were talking and playing, I don't know, like Cards Against Humanity or some shit like that. And I remember looking over at Oscar sitting in the corner, and he had just this blank, empty stare. Just this dead look in his eyes of just staring. And it was like a number of the other people around were drunk, and you know, somebody pointed out, hey, is Oscar okay? And you know, like one of my buddies was completely shit-faced drunk, and he was like, don't worry about him, his life's kind of falling apart, don't fucking ask anything, just let him fucking breathe right now, don't do anything, just like he'll figure it out sort of thing. Which, you know, coming from this drunk friend was like, that was real, talking to real sort of thing. But I remember looking over at Oscar and being like, oh shit, I thought he was drunk this whole time, but I think he's sober more than anybody else here. And that was scary, you know, like seeing that from my, you know, one of my closest friends at the time. And I realized this fucking shitty situation happened and there was no going back. It's like in the monomyth, Joseph Campbell and all that shit, there's this idea of a hero being metamorphosed, but then returning at the end to a changed world, or, you know, bringing fire from the gods sort of thing. And this is like the opposite of that. This is realizing that this is a post-apocalyptic sort of world, even though it's like a personal or individual kind of post-apocalypse, that somebody maybe does come to the underworld, just like in the monomyth, and comes to, like the final boss sort of thing, comes back with the boon. All of this, I swear, is part of the monomyth. Comes back with the golden fleece or whatever, fire from the gods, and is supposed to share it with the rest of humanity. But I realized from this situation and seeing all this stuff that there's no boon. There's no reward for this stuff. It's just a post-apocalyptic world. And you have to ask yourself from there, what the hell am I, like, who am I from here? My friend Oscar had to ask himself, without his wife, who is he? Has to re-find his identity. With his wife, Amy, being someone who was very close and dear to me, I have to ask myself, what does life look like now that she's completely far away? Now, a couple of days ago when I was, writing like notes and all for this song, I wondered, like, how am I going to talk about these things? As I mentioned before, I wrote, a book about it and whatnot. But you know, 3 years ago, and why I hid behind the politics and whatnot with this song. So I didn't want to, deal with this stuff directly and, piss off a bunch of my tribe or whatever. But, meanwhile, I was like writing about this stuff the entire time. So I considered, well, maybe I'll just read a portion of my novel dealing with this stuff. But I was like, well, maybe that's too much information, but I'm going to do that just now. Kind of to prove what this song's really about. And like the hypocrisy of everything. All right. Transparency, echoed Amy via Facebook 2 days before Thanksgiving. Delete me if you want, but don't assume you know everything. Following this were the pictures of a famous ocean port in another state, a weekend getaway shared with Doyle. Are you two an item now? A mutual friend of Oscar and Amy's questioned. Everyone was out of the loop until now, Amy answered. As long as he makes you happy and treats you well, I'm thrilled, this mutual friend replied. If he doesn't, we'll break his legs. The first time I met this mutual friend was years ago. The second time I ever played HeroClix. Oscar and I met him for a game at Nerdsville. It was a coffee place, by the way. Second, he threatened about breaking legs, but he was past middle age, overweight, with no background in self-defense, and probably never been inside a gym. He'd be eaten alive by most. Third, I saw the pictures of Amy's sister's wedding posted mere weeks before. Although friends with her, I wasn't invited since it looked like it was only for a handful. But Amy and Oscar were in the wedding party, along with Ward and Kaylee and other mutual friends. This mutual friend officiated the ceremony. Forgive me, Lord, for being judgmental. Yet his comment made my rage burn. I wanted to break his legs for disloyalty, not just to Oscar, but also to the office of being a justice of the peace. Even if an unreligious ceremony on the state's behalf, he gave them vows that as an agreement, their marriage was based on fidelity. No one should make judgments. Some stranger wrote to Amy, "You know your heart. Y'all ain't living right if y'all don't have haters. So y'all are doing something right," one of Amy's female co-workers wrote. "Y'all names in everybody's mouths." Thanks for listening, defending my honor, and telling truth without judgment. Amy answered with praise. "You're my ride or die, friend." "No judgment here," another male stranger began. "That's not what friends do. You're with someone else, and I respect that. Anecdotally, women face harsher criticism and judgment when they date first." "So true," another stranger crooned. "I love seeing people happy." Someone we don't know called her out, Bubbles wrote from halfway across the world. How Amy slept with Doyle for months and then coming home to Oscar. Some blamed Oscar for not being attentive and understanding that Amy wasn't happy. Then she deleted the entire chain of comments. The stranger wasn't tactful, basically implying Amy was a whore. Others who responded about Amy's happiness, they came to her defense. You know me, I'm subjective. I believe truth differs between individuals, but for someone to change everything done as being right, no one was hurt, is wrong on any level. Censorship of truth from those who state it as fact is saddening. But at least Oscar has been silent. I want to speak up, but I won't. I sighed. Even if civil, make any comment deemed as negative and you're automatically judgmental. It's like she has a persecution complex and projecting that the persecutors have a persecution complex while she's being transparent. It's insanity. Meanwhile, her biggest proponent, the ride or die friend, is obviously a social justice warrior. Bubbles' sarcasm was practically audible despite the thousands of miles. It's an insult to intelligence to someone who has been ride or die. I can almost assure you that Amy's ride or die hasn't laid down her life for anyone. I've known Amy longer. I was in her wedding, both the public and the secret one. I have film footage. I held and blessed their wedding rings, just like our other friends. Does that count for anything but this social justice warrior's ride or die, with a clear voice for not being judgmental? Ride or die here means Amy's friend was the only one saying, "Do whatever you want," Bubbles said. cry for social justice. Meanwhile, support amoral, amoral marital infidelity. I shook my head. I wonder how many game nights or river trips were merely an excuse to see Doyle that we were used to meet an end, which is what Unique did to many of us for his own gain. Not that he wanted real company or community, but the company of a few. Did Amy do the same? You know what? I bet she'll be announcing her being pregnant soon. There are clearly reasons why I hate the religion of Christianity, Amy wrote in another post later that evening. Don't get me wrong, I love Jesus. Even this post was redacted and deleted within the day. At least I discerned one thing from this. When people speak of others not judging them or disliking judgmental mindsets in general, often what that means is the want for actions without negative reactions, critical responses, or consequences, an attempt to become God over themselves without a journey or a boon. That was a true story. I saw screenshots of these people who probably barely knew her at all coming to her defense, and well, all it takes is your being happy. I was seeing mutual friends say this stuff who came from like Jewish traditions. We're just like, well, all that matters in the end is your happiness. You know, or this guy like, oh, we'll break his legs. It's like, motherfucker, like you were friends with Oscar too, and now you're like, well, as long as you're happy, that's all that matters, and as long as he treats you right, then I'll go break his legs. Fuck that guy. I said it. All of this is what I got into when it came to this song. It's why this song means a lot to me personally. I kind of wrote it for my friend Oscar. When I started re-recording this album last summer in 2022, one Friday afternoon I went to go do some like normal shopping at Target for the first time since like that Halloween party 3 years ago. I ran into Amy there along with another friend, like mutual friend. And like Amy and Doyle have 2 kids now. They're engaged to like finally get married. Oscar moved on. He's got engaged. Doyle's wife, I think she's engaged and stuff now too. And, you know, after 3 fucking years, everybody's moved on. That's good. All I know to say, I see all this stuff from a distance, just like the protagonist in the song. Within the prison, see people do all this crazy shit. This case, Amy and Doyle unable to change it. And it fucks with your head. As a single guy who's never been married, I don't have kids. Supposed to have one kid, but it died in the womb. You see people do bad things and take for granted things that guys like me would practically kill for. See close friends, become victims of these kind of fucked up stories. It does something to your head. I've seen stories, not even stories, I can cite people who marriages fell apart, divorce, infidelity on both sides, still come together years later through pain and become like closest friends. Their new spouses are friends with each other, like they have healthy relationships. Amy, I can say she saw that too. She saw other people have fucked up relationships and divorces. Like, she saw all this stuff happen before. She and I saw situations that were fucked up together. We had to deal with it. We saw infidelity together from a couple that, from one person that I can think of. She knew how destructive that shit was, and yet she fucked Doyle anyway. And now she's got 2 kids, and she's engaged to Doyle, and they're gonna live happily ever after. And I'm stuck in prison fucking merely watching. Life goes on, doesn't it? Victims like Oscar and Doyle's wife, they deserve to move on with their lives and find love. I've never questioned that. But what about the people in their own inner prisons? I don't even want to just be like, oh, woe is me, love me, my name's Ben Bowman, yeah. Fuck that. I don't want anybody's sympathy here. I don't want anybody to feel sorry for me. I don't care if you judge me or not. I just want you to understand. I wrote this song because it fucks with your head. To look at the world unable to change anything, and you see how fucked up it is. You see how people take for granted all this shit that they're just given to them. And they do wrong, and they still benefit from it. Meanwhile, you're just stuck in a prison, watching all this shit go down, unable to change anything, unable for your voice to be heard, and you're just in complete lack. I'm in this prison just like the protagonist, never finding love, never knowing in the first place that I was loved. Amy goes and fucks some other married man who isn't her husband, and now she's got 2 kids and gets the life that she wants. Good for her. Seriously, good for her. But how does that not fuck with your head? And that's what this album's really about. I know I've gone too long with this. I don't even want to see how long it says on my phone filming this, but Volume 4 is coming. Maybe I'm angry, maybe I deserve judgment myself, but everybody has moved on, and that's why I can talk about this stuff. It's why I can even allow some of that anger to boil up at this moment. But at the end of the day, this is just a post-apocalypse, people. Just keep living your lives, right? Life keeps going on. Nothing matters, right? Isn't that what nihilism is? But don't take the Lord's name in vain. Cheers, my friends.